You're listening to the Mental Money Podcast, the show that shows you how to master your mind to maximize your money. This show is for people who love to watch their bank accounts grow while shifting their relationship to money. Without further ado, let's get these insider insights from today's leading expert. Hi, this is Natalie. You're listening to the Mental Money Podcast. Thank you so much for coming back. If you are returning, if you're not, and this is your first time, welcome. Today we have with us Heenle Turner, who's going to be helping us learn how to find rock star teammates and people who are going to help move our business forward. Now, I know you've heard me say this in the past. You're going to hear me continue to say this. Having a great team is maybe, if arguably, one of the most important things to your business, other than having like good financials. We talk about that a lot, money and getting money and all the other stuff. So today I'm going to have someone reinforce that idea with even more information, resources, and insights. Thank you, Heenle, for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. So how did you get into this space where you're like teaching about like high performance and finding team members? What led you down this road?
Yeah, so my background is HR. So I've spent, the last, I would say, 9 years, consulting with small businesses. And while I was from like an HR perspective, and that kind of led me down to this opportunity where, I got to work with the All-In company, and we focused strictly on recruitment and hiring kind of the best of the best. And it really kind of comes back down to the people in your organization. And so it kind of came hand in hand. So I worked a lot in helping business owners specifically and consulting with them on various HR aspects. And now I kind of just focus on the recruiting, hiring, and retention of, elite performers.
Okay. That is amazing. Thank you for your work in the space.
Of course.
As an entrepreneur of nearly a decade, people hear me say that so much they think it's a personality trait, but it's not. It's a badge of honor. Okay. In this space, I have personally, right? Like there's professionally, but there's personally, right? You have to know how to work with people. What insights can you give into, like, I know that's a tall order, I'm aware, right? But what insights do you think a good leader has in order to be able to kind of even gear their team? Because I know we're talking about the staff or like the team, but I think your leadership is a clear reflection of the teammates as well, like their enthusiasm, their drive, like their momentum, how they approach the culture of the company. So what insights do you have for a good leader?
First and foremost, you have to remember that people look up to leaders, right? So they follow by example, and they see the type of energy and the type of momentum that you bring to the organization, and they follow that. So if you're in a good mood, if you're encouraging, if it's important for you to focus on this task, if your priorities are XYZ, that's what your team will look up to and exemplify themselves. So it's very interesting that your leadership style is very much reflective in the employees that you hire, and the employees that look up to you. So it's so important that you walk the talk, and you display and you show employees what you want in a person, in an employee, in a team member, so they can display that same kind of walk and talk that you have. And this goes down from everything from your own core values. Like, as a business owner, you should be hiring people whose core values are aligned with yours, because you want people who are kind of like your little mini me's, your clones, the people who are going to do things the same way you would, right? And so that means, understanding, first of all, what's important to you, and communicating that in everything that you do to your team and your staff, and even in your recruitment process, putting it out there that, look, these are these are the goals that I have for this role that I'm hiring for, and this is what we're expecting the role to fulfill. And that means understanding like first what that is and then being very transparent and open about that.
Mm. Okay, I love that. You know how like there's parenting styles that are more
Yes.
effective, like, authoritative versus authoritarian versus permissive, I think the other one is. Are
Mm-hmm.
there leadership styles that lend to a more successful team as well? And is there a name for it?
You know, I think I don't know that I would say they're more that there's one authority over the other, but when I've, looked into to styles of people, I find that the entrepreneur is usually somebody who is creative and is someone who is a natural influencer. And so there are certain like qualities and traits that I've seen from my vantage point, just like consulting with so many different entrepreneurs. But I would say it's more about that consistency. So like if somebody is a type of business owner who is detail oriented, who likes creativity, then the people in the organization need to also share in those same qualities for
Mm.
that business to be successful.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so from a recruiting standpoint, where should we start looking for individuals who align with our core values, what the company plans on creating and putting out in the world?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing that we want to do is understand like what you're as a business owner, like what are your core values? What's true 100% of the time? What stuff that you pay attention to, things that you don't let slide, things that your even I would say even in your home life, your family, they know that this is something that's important to this person, right? Because core values are not really going to change whether you're in the workplace or at home, because they're truly what's important to you 100% of the time. And I would go and we recommend including your core values in your job posting itself. So people who are looking for jobs and come across your job ad, they can see right then and there what your core values are and how it's kind of reflective everywhere in your organization, even in your job posting. And it's something that you talk about all the time. And then when you go back to recruiting and where am I going to find people whose core values align with mine, it's going to go back to one, like a couple of ways to do it. Well, really, when you're recruiting, you should be casting as wide a net as possible. So you can't rely on, one job posting on Indeed or one job posting on LinkedIn. You really need to cast a wide net and capture as many applicants as you can. One strategy you can do is identify where your current 5-star employees came from, right? Were they referrals to you? Where did they go to school? And maybe you can direct efforts there. And you have to do a multitude of things, right? So you've got to post on multiple job boards. You've got to take a look at your maybe you have to have a referral program. Maybe you need to make a marketing type of push. You have to consider what your reputation is in the company and how does that reflect on LinkedIn? How does that reflect on Yelp or other types of like social media platforms out there? And why would somebody want to come work for you? So you have to make sure your brand is on point as well.
Got you. Okay. So, what qualities should we be looking for in an individual who has the qualities that are going to help our business not only succeed, but are going to want to actually be a part of a thriving team?
Right. Yeah. We have our 5-star rating system, and the first star is the core value alignment with the business owner. The second star is that your team of the team that you have shares these 11 universal qualities. So all 5-star employees have these 11 qualities. So you're looking for people who are supportive, collaborative, proactive, limber, task oriented, they achieve the results that you need, they listen, they communicate their thoughts, they're open to feedback, and they love to learn.
Interesting. So, okay. I love those qualities because I think those things are true, right?
Right.
And when I was in school I did like a little stint in learning entrepreneurship, which is really doesn't really help. But anyway, one of the things that, they spoke about was, well, I guess it kind of helped because I'm mentioning it here now, right? One of the things that they mentioned is that you can be an entrepreneur, which is usually assigned, there's like more risk involved. And like, you have to consider what you're going to be doing and how you impact the world. And then there's something called an intrapreneur who kind of takes more of an approach where they have assigned risk, but they're not assuming all the risk. So those qualities sound like more of an intrapreneur than a team member, if that makes any sense. Because like someone who's task oriented would really take on those things because they understand how their lack of task orientation impacts the entire team as a whole. You know what I mean? So they would almost like assume the responsibility of making sure that those tasks are seen through. However, what I've noticed culturally is that a lot of people either don't want to work, right? Because right. And the argument, and I want to make it very clear, whoever is listening, the argument is not why you don't want to work, it's that you do not want to work, right? And it could be a number of reasons. It could be quality of the environment, it could be the wage is not sufficient. I'm not arguing the what, I'm arguing the that, right?
Right.
So you have things like quiet quitting that are very much aligned with my original sentiment. And then you also have things like, people who are proudly stating that they would not give a 2-week notice if they left their place of employment, like those kind of things, right? So how, as an employer and an entrepreneur, do you actually galvanize people to want to be more entrepreneurs, assuming all the other things are in place? They are getting a living wage, they're getting benefits, they, like those things are in place. How do you galvanize people to be able to, and I'm not saying force them because clearly that's not
going to work, right?
Right. But those seems like I guess what I'm trying to say is those qualities seem like ideals in a world where people don't want to do any of those things. A lot of people, not everyone, clearly.
Right.
You got to be really clear these days.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to, tick off the wrong person.
No.
Yeah, it's definitely, you got to remember that 5-star employees represent the top 15% of available talent at the rate in the market. So these 5-star employees who have, who can score a 7 or higher on these 11 universal qualities, they are tough to find, but they're out there. You just have to really, as a business owner, you really want to you need to kind of get into that mindset that yes, that I'm going to find a 5-star employee. No, I'm not going to settle, and I'm going to hire right the first time. And that means I'm going to make the investment into, really seeking out these candidates. I'm going to spend the time. I'm going to spend a couple hours with them in the interview phase to really understand whether or not these candidates have the qualities that I need in my 5-star employee. And if they do not, if the person, like we have a objective hiring system, and if someone does not meet the numbers for meeting the 5-star standard, then you don't move forward with them in the hiring process. And so you have to be okay with never settling and and kind of putting all your efforts into recruiting and hiring the right people. And that means your time, your priority, and understanding that your people in your organization are going to be the game changers to elevate and make your business grow and scale profitably. So I feel like it's a very much like a mindset thing too, as an entrepreneur to understand that you're not going to settle, that you're going to find people out there. I mean, 5-star employees, they don't quite quit, because 5-star employees will will communicate their thoughts, and they will achieve your goals, and they will complete the tasks that that need to get done. So it's very it's kind of, we keep going and going and going. And as a hustler, I think as I think entrepreneurs get this. I think they just need to focus on the people.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. Okay, so you coming from HR, I'm sure you'd have insight into this and can substantiate what I'm going to ask. There are certain questions, rightfully, and let me be clear, rightfully, because discrimination
Right.
and prejudice does happen.
Absolutely.
I am a Black woman. Okay, let's just be very clear about that.
Yeah.
I get to experience it and I get to see it. And I understand why these laws, especially in certain places, exist where you cannot ask certain questions in an interview. And with that being said, in order to mitigate like things like discrimination, what can you ask? Well, within your right. Well, and I'm technically, I'm not asking you for advice because I know you can't do that on an interview. What I'm asking is,
Again.
okay, I mean, if you feel comfortable sharing what you can, but what
Okay.
questions can we ask within our legal limits that will allow us to identify a 5-star employee that also doesn't toe the line of discrimination, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, no, it does. So I can answer your question. Um, so what we so the general rule, like the good rule of thumb, is asking questions that only yield you information about the qualities, skills, and abilities of the person to do the job. So when you start asking a question, you first need to consider, well, what information is this question really going to give me that can help me determine this person's qualities, skills or abilities for the job or the role itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so when oftentimes people are looking to make sure that the questions that they're asking are ones that are kind of valid, and they don't create some kind of discriminatory risk. And so that's a good kind of rule of thumb to think about as someone who's if you're interviewing or recruiting right now, is what answers here am I going to learn that's going to help me determine if the person it has the knowledge, skills, or ability to do the job. And so when you start thinking about that, then you can eliminate a lot of the questions that do pose or create some type of risk. And what we do is we help develop interview questions and actual interview packets based on these 11 qualities, and really to ensure that the questions that you ask are kind of consistent, and that you're objectively reviewing the answers to these questions, and evaluating them kind of consistently across the board. And so like that's going to help you not only hire the best person as when you're kind of objectively assessing people, but you're documenting your efforts and truly have thought through the questions you're asking to just do that kind of double check and make sure that that the answers you get will give you helpful information to assess the candidate.
Okay.
Does that help?
No, that does. Okay.
Okay.
So if I'm understanding correctly, this is part of the service that you offer.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's part of our program, but
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have any resources that anyone could use to kind of get their feet wet? Because a lot of the
Yeah.
entrepreneurs that we listen to, a lot of the entrepreneurs that listen to us, we listen to them,
Right.
but they listen to us. They are newer entrepreneurs and they don't usually have the capital, unfortunately, to kind of
Of
like
sure.
afford someone like you. So I feel like if you could give them just an entry into what that world looks like, and then they could, once they scale and grow, they could consult with someone like you. That
Sure.
would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you I could do you mind if I share that resource right now if anyone wants any information?
Yeah, please.
Okay, cool. Yeah. You can have your listeners text HireRight, so 411321, and that will get them some resources and information. And you can always include my email in your show notes, and that way they can contact me and I'm happy to just answer some questions or get them in the right direction.
Okay, got you. So that's hire as in like hire a team member, right? As in like correctly.
Yes,
Okay, got you.
correct.
Just in case there's any potheads listening and they're just like, hire. Ooh, I like that. Not
Yeah,
that.
right. I got it. I can do this.
Not that kind of hire. Okay.
I know.
Um,
I'm in California. I totally get it.
I'm in Massachusetts, so I get it too.
There you go, right?
All right. So yeah, okay, so there's resources, there are things that you can do to kind of get your foot wet. I appreciate that very
Of
much.
course.
So if you are listening and you are interested in just kind of getting some ideas about what to do and where to look, please text that number. That's hire HireRight to what's the number again?
411321.
411321. That's easy to remember. Okay, awesome. Okay. What other insights could you kind of leave us with that would help us kind of frame our minds around creating like a culture around work? Because it is such a big part of our lives. And unfortunately, we haven't solved the capitalist issue yet where we don't have to work. So until that day comes, what can you offer as far as insights into like creating a culture where like people are knocking down your door even and where you don't necessarily have to, not to obliterate your job, that's not what I'm trying to do,
No
but
problem.
you get what I'm trying to say.
I do. I got it. Yeah.
How do we create that culture where like people want to work with us and we don't have like recruitment issues?
Yeah. I mean, $1 million question is I think as a business owner, like first you want to remember, I think every person out there wants to be part of the community, right? So they have their kind of, home community and home circle. They've got that going on with their friends, and they want to be part of another community and another just kind of environment where they have a community to be part of, and that's what you want to do in the workplace, as you want to provide that community. So that starts with hiring right and hiring 5-star employees, because what people don't want is they don't want to work with people who can't take accountability. They don't want to work with people who don't do what they're going to say, and they really want to be part of that team. They want to have a best friend at work. And so you want to make sure you're doing things that you can to facilitate that type of environment. So you have to trust your team. You have to have that open line of communication. You need to support your team when they need it. And for one person, that could be, a 10-minute conversation, a 10-minute eventing session, a few, maybe like one or two times a week. For somebody else, that could mean, you know, responding to an email slew of questions. And to somebody else, it could be, having just a weekly check-in with that person. And it could be, remembering details about your team and remembering their preferences, and just kind of understanding the individuals who make up your team, so you can help foster a great working relationship really with everybody and each other. So it kind of goes back into hiring the right team from the get-go. it means getting it may mean, letting go of people who are kind of toxic in your work culture and in your work environment. And that's, some things that are kind of be consistent, good rule of thumbs, when you're looking to create that great work culture.
Hmm. You know, it's interesting. This is not my own personal experience, but I know a couple of people who actually had this experiences like this. So they were actually nurses.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just this one coworker who leverages the fact that they are like a linchpin in the company. They know everything.
Mm-hmm.
They can tell you from the president to the janitor. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like they have
Right.
everybody in a chokehold because they're so efficient. They're so knowledgeable. They're so skilled. They're willing to sacrifice literally everything for the job. And like the company doesn't want to get rid of them because they are such an asset to the company, but everyone hates them.
Mm,
Everyone
right.
wants them gone, right? Like, but at the same time, they also kind of weirdly know that if he's gone, it's going to be like a cog in the machine that breaks apart. So, how do you navigate being in that kind of environment where you have someone who's so efficient, but they're also extremely toxic?
I don't think I can't imagine I can't imagine someone being so amazing. And it's funny because I say this and then I've experienced it myself.
Mhm.
But I think now, because I've experienced this myself, and I don't know what size company you were like referring to before, but um I know in that kind of trend is very more common in larger companies,
Mhm.
because it's just another kind of cog on the wheel. And then I've also seen it in smaller companies where where it's like maybe some of the seasoned employees or someone who's been with the organization from the beginning who is creating this like toxic environment, but the business owner might might feel that person is unreplaceable, or knows so much and knows everything, knows every one of our clients. So how can I get rid of that person? Is that
Mhm.
kind of what you're thinking?
Yes, and you're right. It was a bigger company.
Yeah, right. So I would say, like our position is that you need to have a team of 5-star employees to really truly profitably scale your business, because your 1, 2, and 3-star employees, they're creating this toxic environment, and other 5-star employees will leave the organization, if they're stuck having to work with 1, 2, or 3-star employees, or if they're not creating that kind of work community and that work environment that the people need. So for us, and for me, I don't think it's going to. I don't think a person can be so efficient that it's going to, trump everybody else in the organization's kind of happiness. Like I don't think we need to settle for that person,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And even like if you kind of, I think if we looked at this and every time I've done it, especially like now, and um if I look back and I say, well, why was this person so toxic, and what was the problem here? A lot of times it was the core value alignment was not there with the business owner, because even the business owner struggled to come in and work with that person, so that there was a misalignment there from the beginning, right?
Okay. It's interesting because he's still there.
Yeah, no, I'm sure he is. I'm sure he
Like
is.
so many people have left and he's still there.
Yeah,
And like it
yeah,
seems like the owner was willing to sacrifice the other employees who were proficient for
right.
for his perceived efficiency. And it's just really interesting. So for you, your train of thought is
Not worth it.
right, not worth it because at the end of the day, you're gonna end up sacrificing the entire team to some capacity.
Well, that and like say like my dad was like perfect example. You never know what's going to happen. Like my dad was recently hospitalized, right? I mean, he's cool, he's fine, and it was like a year ago. And but it took him out of work for about 4 months. So you learn how to move forward, and you learn how to keep the organization moving along without one person.
Mm,
So he like that efficient, amazing employee. He could find another job. He could have a spouse that forces him to move out of state and not be able to work there. He could take an extended vacation. He could take a leave of absence. He could just quit. The organization would have to move on. So we can't. The making a decision based on one person is a riskier move than I would recommend.
right. No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, like, yeah, the person could pass away, God forbid, like
Yeah, unfortunately that could happen. I had a client once who their it had like one engineer, and their engineer for the mechanical parts, he came down with COVID, and
Mm,
then that unfortunately put him in a position where he needs to have oxygen for the rest of his life, and he was bedridden for I think like 6 months,
mm,
and so they had to work without him, and then when he was able to come back, made some adjustments to his work, atmosphere and his work expectations. But people at the end of the day, you can adjust
right,
with what you have, you
right,
know.
right. No, that makes sense. So from what I'm hearing you say, it also sounds like having key individuals in your business, them being 5-star is as important. It's as important for them to be skillful as it is for them to be pleasurable to be around for to some.
Yeah, you know how I like to say, every person that you hire, they need to have the right mindset and the right skill set for their role. So
Mm,
they need to have, these 11 universal qualities, the core value alignment, but they also have to have the skill set to produce the quantifiable results that the role requires. They have to meet the success metrics of the job. They have to have the aptitudes and the actual like skills and experience that the role requires. Um, and then they have to, produce these results for you in your that the role really requires.
right. And just for clarity, because I know someone's going to hear this and get upset about what's being said. When you're talking about role to, I guess, personality of the person or mindset that they need to approach this career or job, if you
Mm-hmm.
prefer to work alone, find
Mm-hmm.
a job that aligns with that. If you are a people
Exactly. Right.
person and you're good with customers and you're good with clients and you have the personality for that, you have the mindset that this is the kind of role that I want to be in, align yourself with that. We're not saying that if you are at work and your job requires you to be more alone, we're asking you to come out and hang out with everybody. If you don't want to do that, then that's not the case. But
Exactly.
if your job does require you to be out and talking to people, then you're not meeting one of the skill requirements. Okay. So that's that. But anyway,
I
um,
love it.
yeah. So, you know what? I've been really pondering about, the culture of work. The other day, I realized that I spent almost the last 7 years of my life working almost every day. And like, we recently expanded, I'm going to say 2021, we
Mm-hmm.
expanded, we got a bigger space. We are trying to like, hire new team members and safely do that because COVID still is very much a thing. Um,
Yep.
and like, we spoke, like me and my co-founder for the company I'm referring to spoke a lot about the work culture and like, mistakes we've made in the past and things that we wanted to change as leaders, but also as like building a team. What might you offer to make it feel like, and this is just a personal question I hope someone benefits from, right?
Sure.
What could you offer to make it feel like family, like a work family without, and this is not for me, but this is like, okay, let me give you an example. I'm not asking this question for myself, though. I'm asking for the just the work culture of the company. Like we had an issue in the past where when we only provided home care services, we provided home care and non-delivery transportation, non-ambulatory transportation.
Mm-hmm.
Only provided home care. We had issues sometimes, not often, but we understand that someone going into someone's home could
Mm-hmm.
make the person feel very comfortable. And we had a lot of employees cross boundaries with clients because they liked them, or the relationship became more than fiduciary. It became
Mm-hmm.
more like,
Personal, like, oh, here's a TV show I like, and let's sit and watch
right.
it together.
Yeah, like even during off times. And we
Right.
like, you can't do that. We have to ensure you to be there. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like certain things like that. But then like I'm in a weird way, personally, not professionally, but personally, I was happy that we could provide that sense of comfort for the family to know that we have a team member. Because a lot of our biggest thing was like I would go into the home, assess the home, gauge, like gauge the family's temperature, who would be a good fit for them, and then the fit
Mm-hmm.
would work for the most part, right? So I'm
Right.
glad that that worked out where the client to caretaker match was mostly accurate, and like they end up really loving the person that they were matched with. But sometimes it became way too much to manage, where it's just like you're almost micromanaging that relationship, which is what you don't want, right?
Yeah, you definitely are looking for more of a natural relationship with the caregiver and the caretaker, I guess. No,
right.
caregiver and patient.
Right. No, for sure. But then now we're having more like in-office key individuals, and thinking about what we want the office to feel like. We do love that family feel. Like,
Mm-hmm.
where the client knows they can call us and like, check in or vent or let us know what they need or that kind of thing. But how do we do that without there being a line of delineation between not only us and the key staff, but then
Mm-hmm.
also between the key staff and the clients?
So you're looking to intact the relationship internally, like at the office,
Yes.
is to strengthen that relationship a little bit.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How many people are on your team, if you don't mind me asking?
No, we're going on 5.
Okay, okay, cool. So it's a good tight knit. And are you guys, is there a physical office or is it virtual?
There is a physical office for that company.
And do you do things, so like some things that what I kind of think of at first is 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 celebrating the wins.
Mm-hmm.
So if there are and kind of making conscious efforts to celebrate a win every day.
Mm-hmm.
And we recommend, and I really like having a daily a daily check-in with the whole team, especially with that size. Like it works really well
Okay.
when you get the whole team together once a day for like 10 minutes, and you go around and ask each person. As a business owner, you don't participate, you kind of just facilitate, but you ask, what are the 3 things that you're going to work on today, 3 things that you accomplished yesterday, and that kind of keeps everybody kind of has a pulse on each other, and everybody gets held accountable to their tasks and kind of what the 3 items that they shared.
Right.
And it's an opportunity for everyone to get together, and you ask people to give kudos, that if there are like kudos or shout outs or thanks, and then you share the wins and the celebrations kind of collectively together. And you can also do some fun things together. So if you have a birthday or like lunches. You also can do things like just create kind of like a friendly competition, kind of maybe make it themed on like the month, or like an upcoming holiday or something.
Right.
And you can always, of course, like survey your employees, right? And ask, how would you like to be recognized? How what are some things that you would like to see our office or our team do more of, do less of? Like, what was your favorite part of, last week? Or how would you tell a friend, what would you tell a friend about your workplace, and start getting an idea of, what your specific team is looking for, and evaluate that information, and then make a move in terms of like changes and ideas. Because if your team doesn't like that, like, group camaraderie, if they don't like that kind of stuff, it's not going to work for them, right? So you kind of have to get a pulse of what works for the team, and then you can adjust.
Okay, got you. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing some of the insights that you did. I think I learned a lot. That's why I'm a nerd. So I love my own podcast for that reason. I'm just like, okay, other people are gonna love this too. They have to, right? So where can we get a hold of you if we wanted to like reach out, ask questions, consult, that kind of thing? Where do we call, email, website?
Yeah, so you can definitely send me an email, and so I'll share that with you. It's just my first name, Heenle at theallincompany.com, and I'll just add it. We could just add it to your show notes, and then you can always text HireRight to 411-321, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Heenle.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the Mental Money Podcast. Please go ahead and remember to subscribe, but don't hoard all of this good information for yourself. Share this information with someone that you know could use it, especially if they need a shift in their mindset, or someone who would love to have more money. So until we meet again, remember, like Uncle Snoop said, keep your mind on your money and your money on your mind.